And we remain in the region, but now turn to Iraq. Now that Saddam Hussein's hometown Tikrit has been freed from the grips of the Islamic State by Iraqi forces, Iranian-backed Shiite militias, and U.S. airstrikes, Iraq's government looks ahead to retake parts of Anbar province and Mosul. But the Sunni residents of Mosul, as in Tikrit, are between a rock and a hard place and wanting to be free of IS control, but fearful their potential rescuers, the Shiite militias, could deliver a much worse fate. Still with us, our i24News Middle East analyst, Ali Waqid. Thanks for still being here, Ali. And also correspondent Danny Swibel. Good morning to you. But first, let's watch a report by Danny that gives us a recap of the events in Tikrit and the unknown future that lies ahead for Mosul.
Iraqi Prime Minister Haidar al-Abadi, accompanied by the army, police, and Shiite paramilitary leaders, paraded through Tikrit upon the retaking of the city after the Islamic State militant group captured the city last June as they swept through most of Iraq's Sunni Muslim territories, swatting aside a demoralized and disorganized army. With the completion of a successful military campaign, initially spearheaded by Iranian-backed Shiite paramilitary groups and finalized with U.S.-led airstrikes, two strange bedfellows, Iraqi government officials sought to paint the entry into Tikrit as a national triumph.
The security forces are in the service of the province and the people, and as soon as we are secured, the citizens will be able to come back under the care of the government, and all Iraq shall be liberated from the crimes of the Islamic State.
A tremendous amount of work lays ahead to free the other IS-dominated cities, with many unanswered questions. As Tikrit was on the eve of being freed, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon met with Prime Minister Abadi, saying he was troubled by alleged abuses by Iraqi pro-government forces and the Shiite militias against Sunni civilians. Some Sunnis of Tikrit were supportive of the Islamic State, but the many who are not simply want to return to their homes, but are fearful the Shiites might seek revenge.
Are they going to be treated as enemies? Are they going to be victims of reprisal attacks, particularly for a notorious massacre that the Islamic State committed against Shiite militia forces last summer? Or are they going to return to their homes where electricity is restored and services are restored?
Will the Iranian-backed militias still fight for Iraq, with the U.S. on the same side conducting airstrikes? The post-war reality and security situation in Tikrit will serve as a metaphor and a learning experience for the much larger goal of freeing Mosul, a predominantly Sunni city, from the grips of IS.
In Tikrit, there were strongholds of support for the Islamic State. Whether or not the Mosulis decide to help ISIS or side with the forces that come to retake the city is going to be the character of the forces that come. Is it going to be a U.S. and Iranian effort exclusively? Are Kurdish forces going to be involved? They need to decide whether or not they fear the Islamic State more or the Shia militias backed by Iran.
The United States and its allies continue to conduct airstrikes against Islamic State, who still control large swaths of Syria and Iraq. But with no plans for Western troops on the ground and IS maintaining control over Mosul, it remains to be seen what the makeup of forces will be and how this will play out in this oft-times sectarian quagmire of old.
So, Danny, tell us more about these dilemmas that are facing the largely Sunni populations, because on one hand they want to be free from Islamic State control, but on the other hand these Shiite militias that are helping to free them are carrying out devastating things in these towns.
We're hearing overwhelming reports of Shiite retaliation upon freeing a town like Tikrit. Actually, Ban Ki-moon spoke with Haidar al-Abadi, saying this was a big problem. The Shiite have a lot of issues because last year, as we've seen, they faced a lot of brutality from the Islamic State. So upon freeing them of IS, they are actually looting some Sunni houses.
Right.
Some people
Hundreds,
that's right, and people who perhaps weren't even involved in supporting IS. Well, the Shiite militias are definitely accusing them of being in support of that, and we're hearing reports of different kidnapping, some executions, and this is happening en masse. And as the Shiite-backed, Iran-backed Shiite forces and the Iraqi government forces are going to push on into other parts of Iraq, this is a very scary situation of how you're going to free it, but not have a worse reality once IS is gone.
And Ali, how are these Shiite militias getting away with this type of behavior? I mean, no one is really in control. That's the issue.
That's the issue, and the tragedy is that the Iraqi army by itself was not capable to free the city from the Islamic State, and it was in need of these Shiite organizations. And as we mentioned, as many Iraqis mentioned, that Tikrit will be a kind of a test case for the regime about their attitude towards the Sunnite minority of Iraq, and Sunnites in Mosul and and elsewhere, they are seeing what is happening in Tikrit. So when the choice is to join the Islamic State to fight the regime, or to keep neutral, or to join the regime forces, I think the pictures we are seeing from Tikrit and the reports coming from there is not helping the regime to integrate the very big Sunnite minority in Iraq, and of course not to create a gap between them and between the Islamic State and the other jihadist forces. Haider Abadi, when he was elected, replacing the very anti-Sunnite Nouri al-Maliki, said that one of its most important missions is to reintegrate the Sunnite minority to be part of the decision-making in the Iraqi system. And now when we see the Iraqi Prime Minister getting into an Iraqi city backed by Shiites, some of them are foreign groups coming from Iran, coming from Pakistan, and coming from Afghanistan and elsewhere, it is sending a very clear message to the Sunnite minority in Iraq that what was during the Nouri al-Maliki period will be most probably the case also under Haider al-Abadi.
And speaking of minorities, Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi visited the Kurdish city of Erbil yesterday for a meeting with the with the president of Iraq's northern Kurdish region, Masoud Barzani. The leaders were expected to focus on the Erbil-Baghdad relationship as well as military operations to retake Mosul. It is the first time al-Abadi has visited the northern Kurdish region of Iraq since he took office in September last year. Let's hear some of what he had to say.
Our visit to Erbil today is to coordinate and cooperate on a joint plan to liberate the people of Nineveh. It is not in the interest of the federal government, nor it is in the interest of the government of Kurdistan region to encroach on the territories of Nineveh. Nineveh is for the people of Nineveh. We are cooperating in the interest of the people of Nineveh. We denounce any attack on the people's rights and properties, and for this reason we have identified those who offend our armed forces and offend the Hashid Shabi, and we have arrested a number of them. We assure all the people, whether they are in Anbar, Nineveh, or in all other areas that are still under the control of IS, that we respect all the people and we do not allow any encroachment on their properties, their rights, their lives, and we will endeavor to protect them.
So how significant is it, especially at a time like this, that the Iraqi Prime Minister is meeting with the Kurdish president? It's
very important that he's post the policy of his predecessor, Nouri al-Maliki, and trying to create an Iraq where everyone who fights today has a future in Iraq. It's not just having people temporary to win military battles, but actually to integrate them. So it's very important. And he has to understand that there are claims on each side, of the Sunni side and the Shiite side, as well as Kurds, of people who have been wronged and who want to face retaliation. So he has a very huge task ahead to unite and to free the country from the forces of IS.
And returning to the issue of Tikrit, where we understand there was terrible looting that occurred after it was freed by Shiite militias, where we understand mass graves were uncovered?
It is believed that these were actually some Iraqi forces and perhaps predominantly Shiite forces. So this is the reason perhaps why, when they're going in, not only trying to stop IS, they're doing retaliatory acts like looting and executing, because they feel they have a valid claim that they were wronged from the Sunnis to begin with. So you could see both sides as a very tough challenge for the current Prime Minister to address both concerns. And while he's doing that, he's having the Iranian support and the U.S. support him. So it's a very tough pressure cooker going on.
Very complex situation. Danny, thank you very much for being with us. Ali as well. Thank you both for joining us this morning. And coming